Jad Saxton and Monica Rial.
Let's see. I play Carla in Fairy Tale. Thanks. I play Perrine in Strike Witches.
Woo!
Eve in Bacano. Machiko in Ghost Hunt.
Yeah.
Senna in Haganai.
Yes.
Harana in Is This a Zombie?
Woohoo!
Elena Peoples in Eureka 7AO.
Yeah.
Gosh, I ran out in my mind.
I know, right? It's like when you ask somebody that does a lot of voices that then after a while it becomes this deer in headlights kind of reaction. And it's not that we don't remember. It's like all of them start rushing into your head at once. And it's like, Oh, and Hatchin.
Oh, well, yeah. I play Hatchin in Machiko and Hatchin. Yes. Konako in High School DxD. Oh, Fam in Last Exile, Fam the Silverwing. Yeah, you go.
How long we got? No, I'm kidding. I've been in a lot of stuff. I guess some of the big stuff, I play Bulma in Dragon Ball Z Kai. I was Shiro in Dead Man Wonderland, Tsubaki in Soul Eater, Lyra Dante in the first Full Metal Alchemist, and then Mei Chang in the Brotherhood. I play Mei Rin in Black Butler. Oh, here's one that always gets the woo! I play Belarus in Italia. It's always the girls. Woo! Where are the dudes that like Italia? You're out there, right? Oh, there's one. Me. Yeah. I was also in Fam the Last Silverwing, but I was Sarah. I was also in Eureka 7, but I play the sloth, Noah.
Yay!
So yeah, a lot of stuff. We've both done a lot of stuff, but this is the first show that we actually got to play off of one another, which is really rad. Oh, well, an index.
Oh, yeah, certain magical index.
That's
and
the first time.
Certain scientific railgun.
Yeah.
I'm Komoe and you're index.
Yeah.
So of all the shows you've been on, which do you think is the most fun to work with? Either because of the show or because of the cast?
Oh. So many. It'd be really sad if I didn't say panty and stocking because we're all here and it's a lot of fun. And if you guys don't come to the panel later, you're going to miss out because it's going to be full of dirty language and awesomeness. And those are all people that I've been friends with for a long time, and I think that helps. Machiko and Hatchin, I think, for me anyway, was really special because it was a really rough time in my life with my dad. Y'all, if you were here last year, you remember my dad was sick. He's good now. And it was a very serious story, too, and we really got to know one another. Jade and I barely knew each other beforehand and really got to know each other over the course of that. So what about for you?
Oh, God, it's so hard, yeah. I really like Is This a Zombie?
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
It's so funny, and I do love the cast of that show, and getting to do a second season sort of always kind of helps you fall further in love and have a little bit more fun. But Fairy Tale is really, really fun, too.
Why?
Fairy Tale is fun.
I mean, that adventure just never ends, and my character, as the director Tyler Walker always describes, is a bitchy Mary Poppins, which is just sort of fun to do. It's sort of fun to step in those shoes. And be a flying cat. Come on.
And it's always nice to know that, like, there's a lot more Fairy Tale. It's the show that never ends, which means that we will be employed for a while, which always makes you happy.
Yay.
Employed is a good thing.
Employed is great.
Would you explain to the crowd, because we haven't covered this in any of our other Q&As, the basic difference between dubbing, which you do some of the time, and prelay?
Well, we do predominantly dubbing. I mean, we do some video games and stuff, which is prelay, but we do predominantly dubbing, which is ADR, which is automated or automated or automatic, depending on who you talk to, dialogue replacement. The difference is like when you have a prelay, like say with the Adventure Time guys and stuff, like they go in a room, they get to record everything together and have a good time, and then they animate it. We get something that was already animated in another country, Japan, and then we bring it back and it's translated, and script adapters like myself and Jamie go and write. We keep the intent, but we try to match the flaps and stuff. And so then we have to do what I like to call math acting, where you have to convey the character and everything, but within the lip flaps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you have two screens when you're in the booth, and one is showing the Japanese, and one is a script. And so they will preview it for you in Japanese, so you can get a chance to see it once and kind of see the characterization and see the flaps. And then you get a chance to go. You get 3 beeps and you go.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
Now, are they drawn that specific to sounds? I mean, do the flaps just go up and down, or do you have to make round sounds and thin sounds?
That's a good question.
It varies a lot.
Yeah, it varies from show to show.
Throw some technical terms at us.
Well, like back in the day, you had shows like, Battle of the Planets and those kinds of things where they were what I used to call nom-nom flaps because it was just nom and nom and nom. If y'all have ever seen Ike
it's a
from
puppet.
Yeah, Ike from South Park, his whole head opens up. They're kind of like that, but now because of the computer animation, they use computers a lot. So I know there was one show that I adapted the scripts for called Dance in the Vampire Bund, and it was so animated that like they would form vowels so you could see what the vowels were. So when I'm writing the scripts,
Do that again with the microphone lower.
when you see what the vowels, like the little mouths, so you can't it adds an even more difficult experience to it because then you're not just filling the flaps from top to bottom. You actually have to fit like vowel and consonant sounds.
Right, because in E, you tend to smile.
Yeah.
And in O, you tend to have a great big round mouth.
There was one guy, I wrote a script for one of the Appleseed series, and it's very computer animated. And there was this one guy, I swear, I didn't know what to put in his mouth because he looked at the camera and he went, yeah, yo. And I was like, what is that? And I just kept saying, yeah, yo, because I'm like, there is no word that goes, yeah, yo. And his face got all animated, and then he went back to talking normally. I'm like, great. He's just going to go, yeah, yo, for no reason in the middle of that speech. It's going to be awesome.
And is that the word you finally...
I finally found something, but I just wrote a note to the director like, this animation is crappy. Have fun.
What do you like most or least about anime? Like, for instance, in my case, and I know everybody else loves it, but to me, I don't get why a character will be speaking perfectly normal, and then all of a sudden they scream, and then they're back to completely normal, and I don't get that. And there's usually the flashy screen behind them. All the scenery disappears, and it's just flashing, and I just...
See, but I like that because it's not real life. I mean, that's what's fun about cartoons and anime, and because you can draw anything, whereas a real life human couldn't do that. So it's fun to sort of, I call that the spazzing out, when they sort of spaz out, and like sometimes within those scenes they will completely change the style of animation. Oftentimes they'll do like the chibi thing and like the comic book style, like bubbles and stuff like that. I find that really fun because sometimes it gives a character that's often very demure and like contained a chance to really just freak out.
I think for me, and y'all are going to hate me, there are some really good ones. But this trend of the harem show gots to die. I mean, and I say that, and I like being cast a lot. And in harem shows, girls like Jade and I get cast a lot. But I think that
Define harem show?
A harem show is, you guys know, and they come in all different, there's some really good ones, and then like all anime, there's some really crappy ones. It's a show where there's one kind of nerdy, sad guy, and all of these girls come from either another planet or another world, or they're just weird, and they all fall in love with him, and they all fight for his attention, and they all fight against each other. And I just think it sends out a poor message because it
16 girls and one guy.
Yeah, well, and it says to this dude, like, hey, you don't have to try to be a better man. You could just be this douchebag nobody likes, and guess what? Girls will flock to you. It's not how it works, guys.
How much of yourself do you put into your characters versus basing it completely off of the Japanese dub?
Oh, fun. It depends a lot on the director, honestly, and the studio sometimes too, because at Funimation we don't actually get to hear the we don't hear the Japanese when we audition. We go solely by what's called a side, so it'll have a picture of the character, or a couple of pictures of the character, and then just the lines. And the director tells you about the character and tells you about the show, and you kind of go from there. And then when you go into the booth to record, you get to hear the Japanese, but by then you've kind of created a character. So you'll take what they've done, but at the same time, you've already established, right? Do you feel that way?
Yeah, and
Do you know why it's done that way?
well, I think that it's just a different style. Like they try to make Americanize it more, so to speak. I mean, because we're gonna like talk differently and like care about different things. Like for example, no one in America cares if you say like their first name or last name or like how you say their name, but like that's really important in Japan and really important in anime. And so there's a lot of times where they have to switch that around. That's just one example, but you know, and
is that also why? And you did High School of the Dead, and they'll Americanize everything about it except the names.
Right, because like as an adapter, there's a lot of times where it depends on the show that comes in. Like I explained to people, like,
Get in the back of the line.
or on High School Host Club, right? We know that no guy's gonna walk into Best Buy, never having heard of Orin High School Host Club, and pick up that box and be like, I have to have this show, right? We know that that's more fan-centric. Like, you guys are gonna be the ones that buy it. So we keep in the honorifics, we keep in the Japanese-centric terms and all this kind of stuff. But when you have a show like a Machiko and Hatchin, although this one wasn't really changed at all. It
yeah,
wasn't
because
modern
this
or
one had like
westernized.
The simple fact that it's Michiko and not Bill and Susie.
Right. But we do keep the names, but on some of the shows, if they think it's going to be applicable for a wider audience, like a panty and stocking, then they will westernize it. So.
Have you ever felt that when like your anime was cut or did not get to see a second season, that you felt that you couldn't play the character again?
Do we ever feel what? Sorry.
Like how did you feel when they stopped producing the anime and it was cut and you got never to produce another second season?
Right, when there's not a second.
That always sucks.
I got this question now. Other than unemployed, how do you feel about losing a character to either character death or cancellation?
Well, yeah, that always sucks, and we never know. Usually, we don't know.
Yeah,
if there's
actually,
gonna be a
I
second
always hear
season.
from you guys first. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they're producing it, or they're doing another season in Japan. I'm like, oh, I hope they do the dub, because that would be awesome.
They're doing another season in Japan and you're not in it.
Yeah. We
That's
always
a possibility too. Like sometimes another studio could take it over, and that's happened.
and voice match, yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like people always ask, "Hey, if the season 3 of this show comes out, do you want to do it?" And my response is, "I like money." I love my characters, and don't get me wrong, there's an artistic integrity there too. But don't ever ask an actor, "Do you want to do more of that thing?" Because they're gonna go, yeah."
What animes do you want that you act in to have a second season? Like the ones you particularly like?
All of them. All of them should have second and fourth and fifth and 10th season.
I really want Strike Witches to continue because there's so much Strike Witches, like extra stuff in Japan, and there's a movie and there's stuff like that, and I always hear from fans like, is that gonna happen? I'm like, I hope so, but I don't know.
I would really love for Michiko and Hatchin. Who here has seen Michiko and Hatchin? Oh my God, you guys need to get on it because this is probably, I've done a lot of anime. This is probably one of the best shows that I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that because I'm Michiko. I'm saying it because it's a really good show. And the way that it ends, it's left kind of open-ended a little, where you could see where there could be more of it. Although, I don't know, it ends so perfectly. Maybe that's bad.
Now, do the directors and the American producers feel that, let's say Monica's cast, character runs 8 episodes and is killed. I mean, that's just the way the storyline goes. So they try to find a new character on that show for Monica? They'll just have you switch up your voice?
Usually they try not to use you again in the same show just because, well, especially somebody like me or Jade, we have such recognizable voices that even if I try to change it, usually they want to keep you. If you play one character, that's it.
And there are some people that play 4 voices on like a Billy West.
But it
plays
does
4
depend
voices
on
a
how
show.
long the show goes on.
Right.
Like, I was actually talking to Tyler Walker, the director of Fairy Tale, about this the other day because I'm like, how, like, have you run out of people?
Yeah,
like
he's
there's
going
so
to.
many characters in that show, like much like One Piece, I think.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've actually found it a sense of pride to figure out how to not repeat people, but it depends on how long the show runs because I know, like, in that show, certain people have played episodic characters and then moved on to play something else. But I mean, if you're a main character for so long and then you die, you probably don't get to come back because, especially if you're a girl, because actually every person that he mentioned had played multiple characters was a man. But if you're a girl, remember what I said earlier about how there's 50 more of you? Yeah.
I played 2, but one of them's Plu, so I don't know if that counts. All I do is go, and that doesn't really count.
So, other than yourself, who's your favorite voice actor or voice actress? I know you guys get that question a lot, but you know.
There's so many. You know what?
Monica Rial.
Jade Saxton. I was gonna say though, seriously, like my peers, the people that I work with every day, I'm always amazed. It wasn't until I got to direct anime for a while that, because I liked Todd Haberkorn. I thought he was a great guy, great actor. But then when I actually had to direct him and I'd watch him do like 10 pages and then at the end go, okay, line number 62, blah, da, 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 line number 85, blah, 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 blah. I was like, holy crap, you're like a robot. An amazing robot. So, I mean, like, what we do is so difficult and so intricate that I would say everybody that I work with, and that's not a cop-out, like, everybody is really awesome.
What about Troy Baker? Excalibur.
Troy Baker's a dude. No, I'm kidding. He's an old friend of mine. I like Troy. He's great. He's been in LA for so long, though. Sometimes he forgets he's from Dallas.
He switched clubhouses.
Right, he switched clubhouses. Now he's a big dude though now. Now Troy's like the man. What about you, sweetie? Who do you look up to? Besides me.
Hi.
I mean, I don't have like favorites for sure, but I do get little like voice crushes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe from Fairy Tale and from other things, I got a voice crush on Brittany Karbowski for a while. Because,
So cute.
okay, see, this is really stupid and goes back to like high school mentality. But when I was in high school, like I always wanted to be a cheerleader, and she just has that like natural rasp, and I never had that, and I always thought those girls were so cool. And so I think sometimes you can gravitate to like my voice doesn't do that. She's awesome. But yeah, it's really hard because you get to know these people and they're your friends, and But I think also like cartoons you grow up with, you can. And I'm so bad at names, but I love the girl from Jim and the Holograms, and I'm a huge Looney Tune fan, so all of those voice actors, and any Disney stuff as well, like voice actors kind of look up to that, and I look up to those people.
Out of all the characters that you guys have done, which one do you think would be the best roommate for you guys?
The best what?
Roommate.
Roommate.
Yes.
Oh, what a good question. Ooh. Roommate.
Okay. These are the two that came off the top of my head. I have to say two because like it depends on my mood. Komoe from Index seems like she would be a party animal and have a good time because she's constantly drinking and chain smoking and like she's out for a party. And she looks 5, so that'd be just weird. I think it'd be a weird fun time. And then Mayu Miyano from Bigata HK or Yamada's First Time. She's just so sweet and gives good advice and is such a good friend, and she can make the best looking cakes and desserts ever, and I think that'd be awesome to have just cupcakes every day when you came home.
That would be awesome. I play a lot of psychos. So.
Jade, why does Monica play so many psychos?
No comment.
So I don't know. I guess, well, if I had to pick anybody, I'd probably pick Mira Jane from Fairy Tale because she's so sweet and she can cook and she serves ale and she would take care of your every whim. But then if somebody pissed you off, you could be like, Mira, Satan stole his ass. And she'd be like, ah. So probably Mira.
Since you played stalking in Kind of Stalk, by any chance, do you like sweets as much as her, or do you?
Oh, honey. Yes. People were asking about panty and stocking the other day, which we have a panel tonight you should all come to because it's going to be hilarious. But I think I gained 15 pounds with stocking because when you're in the booth all day talking about cupcakes and Swiss rolls and sweets and gimme candy, the first thing I wanted when I got out of the booth was Swiss rolls and cupcakes and candy. And sometimes I'd even record in the booth with a cupcake. So I'd do my line and be like, stop being such a me. Like just constant sugar, and I swear I'm still trying to get rid of some stocking.
You are a method cupcake actress.
It's not so much.
You don't just act the eating of the cupcake. You must have high quality cupcakes with you.
It's not so much that I'm method, so much as I had an excuse. I was method for the time while I got to eat cupcakes.
Since the shows are already recorded in Japan, they have all the animation and all that, where does the director's vision come in America? Because since the emotions are already played out on screen and that's how you have to play it out, where do they come in?
I think that's a really good question.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Do you have an answer?
No, go ahead.
I mean, they're getting to choose a whole new cast, and I think it starts there. I mean, they do their homework and they watch it because they want to make sure they're at least getting sort of the right type, but sometimes they'll go against type and sometimes they'll totally change it up. But I mean, everyone is so individual as an actor, and so when they're choosing the cast, I think it definitely starts from there. And the writers as well. I mean, they can kind of guide and go from there, but you know, we're not going to be anything like that or sound anything like that necessarily. So that's how I think it's hard. But you've actually directed, so you might
And
have
I
a
think
different
that's
vision.
what it is that because we're so used to seeing it, like as an adapter, like I've watched all of Fairy Tale in the Japanese more times than I would ever care to tell you. Because when I'm adapting, I have to watch each episode like 6 or 7 times. So I get very used to seeing reactions and thinking that's what that's supposed to sound like. But as a director, your job is to watch the whole series, be as educated as you can about those characters and that series. But a funny thing happens when you take the Japanese out of the animation. And all of a sudden, something that looks like it has to be an angry reaction doesn't look like an angry reaction. You know what I mean? So there are chances for you to kind of do something a little different because all of a sudden, without that voice track, you're given a little bit more liberty. Things that once looked like a very angry scene all of a sudden look like a very passionate scene. So it's not like, hey, maybe we don't have to yell. We could still have that passion and fire, but let's bring it down. Like, let's choose to do it differently than they do. And then there's other directors that want to be as close to the original as possible, and they're like, yell! Go for it, which is great. So it depends on the director, but it is weird. Like sometimes just mute like if it's a show you've never watched before, just watch a scene and mute it. And you'll see that like, oh, you could pretty much put anything. In fact, there's reactions that because of the way it's animated, it's supposed to be like a happy react and they're going. So it's like, oh, now as a writer, I have to figure out a reason for them to make that reaction instead, because if you do that in America, that doesn't look so happy. That looks like you just stole my cupcake. So I have to figure out a way to make it work. So yeah, there is a little leeway for liberty. And then as actors, we get to add this nifty thing called subtext. So like in a scene, if we're doing a scene together, and a lot of times on Machiko and Hatchin, it would be this way. I would play a certain reaction. Let's say I'm supposed to be very angry with her, but deep down inside, I have this other feeling of I really care about her and I'm upset. So it's not just anger, it's like these layers that you get to add. So all of that kind of gives you, so it's not like we're just going in a booth and going, this is what the Japanese did, you know? We're kind of trying to put our own take on it. And like I tell everybody, like if you buy a disc, like you guys are so lucky because when I started doing this, you got a VHS tape with like 2 episodes and it was $60. So now you get a DVD. I'm old. Yeah, get over it. What you get a DVD and you've got both languages. So I always tell people like watch both languages because you get the same story, but you get a different take on either side.
How many voices have you made in your whole career?
How many voices have we made in our whole career?
Yes.
Anime News Network is a great resource. I don't know. I'd have to like go on and count.
You can
Because-
IMDb them and count.
Yeah, Anime News
Because
Network.
okay, I was having this conversation earlier because even though the timbre of your voice may not fluctuate very much, every character is different and everything you're putting into it is different. At least as actors, we have to think that way because we're trying to come from a place of like truth and meaning and you know, it sounds like stupid, but that's why we do what we do. That's why
Yeah.
we love what we do, and so we mean it and we do mean it. So I don't know. She's in way more than me, but I think I'm close to like 70 different.
I'm sure you are. You have
But
to be by now.
you're like 200 something, right?
I'm like 300 and over 325, which is scary.
Different projects. And then a project could have
That's just anime.
and a project could have 30 to 100 episodes.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, though. You guys have to understand.
And you're still worried about being unemployed.
No, I'm not. But I've been doing this for a long time. And, like, Jade's been doing it for what, 4?
I've been doing it for 7 years.
7
but
years. And I've been doing it for twice that long. So, and I started back when there weren't a lot of people working. So it was like, we need a little girl, call Monica. We need a little girl, call Monica. So I played like every little girl in anime for like 3 years straight. So I lucked out in that it was a very particular time, and then I work for 2 studios. So like I make the 4-hour drive to Houston. So it's not like I'm just, woo, give me all your girl roles or else. It's just that I work hard and drive back and forth, and because when we naturally sound like kids, it's a lot easier for us to find work than it is people that have to try to sound like kids. Does that make sense?
Have you ever, while recording for the lines or anything, have there been any times when you just laughed out hysterically because of like how wacky the lines were or how your characters were?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if I can think of anything particular right now, but well, and yeah. So I mean, sometimes like I'll catch it out of the corner of my eye too, because like when we see our script on the screen, it's like a whole page of dialogue, and so sometimes I'll screw up a take because I'll see it out of the corner of my eye, like what I'm about to say later, and then I'll botch an entire take because of it.
On Panty and Stocking, we had a lot of laughing because we would read the other person's line before we read our line, or we'd hear somebody in the background. I would come in right after Ian, who plays Chuck, and you guys don't even get to hear like a third of what he does because it's so buried underneath everything that happens, but I'd hear all this ridiculous, and I'm like, picturing Ian doing all of that. But the one time I really had just like a breakdown, and we actually had to call a session, was I was working with Colleen on Tsubasa, of all things. And I had been locked in a box for 3 12-hour days, because back when early Funimation, we just worked all day long. And after a while, because like the boxes we recorded back in our whisper rooms, they're very small, so you go a little crazy after being locked in a box for that long. So it's Princess Sakura. She's very serious. Everything is very dramatic and sweet. And all of a sudden, I just started laughing and laughing. And I couldn't stop laughing. And Colleen's like, let's take a break because this isn't even a funny scene. I'm like, all right. And I couldn't shake it. Like, I was so gone.
You needed a break.
I needed a break, so we called it.
I'm a big fan of Ghost Stories. It's one of the few animes I actually watch. And I wanted to know how it was working with a script that's different from most animes in terms of
It's
content
fabulous.
and references.
Have you guys, who's seen Ghost Stories? Oh, there's not that many. Okay, Ghost Stories, just to give you guys some background, Ghost Stories is a show that didn't sell very well in Japan. So the Japanese came to ADV Films and like, hey, we'll give you this title, but we want you to make our money back because we didn't make our money back in Japan. Do whatever you want with it. And so ADV's like, seriously? We can do whatever we want? And they're like, yeah, do whatever you want. So we kept the names of the characters, but we changed everything else. So like my character in the original was like a psychic, so we turned her into a born-again Christian who would walk around and going, have you accepted Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior? And then, so since she was the Christian, then you had to have Greg Ayers, who was like the nerdy character, so we turned him into the Jewish boy so that they could fight. Basically, it offends everyone. So if you're easily offended, don't watch it. But it was fun because we got to do this kind of organic script. There was no script. Like we went from the translation and kind of threw it out the window and made up our own story, and everybody got to kind of add their lines as they went along. And I really love that experience, but it's so, I don't know that that's ever gonna happen again because it was such a weird circumstance. I would love to be able to do it with my friends at Funimation, be like, we did this really awesome thing, y'all should try it because it's so much fun. And it's probably the most I've ever read the Bible. Because I was looking for quotes. Like, hey, Chris Patton walked by one time and I'm like in a Bible and he goes, you're going to get hit by lightning. Like, Bible. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great, great, great fun.
All right, thank you.
You dubbed a mute character?
Oh, I've dubbed like 8 new characters.
What do you? This is the opposite of ventriloquism on the radio. How do you dub a mute?
It became a joke because the first mute character that ever came through was this girl power, and it was an OVA, and it was a simultaneous release in the States and in Japan. So Akitaro Daichi, the director, had picked the cast, and I play this little girl that's mute, but she signs everything. And so she makes these little exertions. So she would still like do her smile, like she'd still smile and but then when she's signing, she does the little like little exertions as she's signing. Which, funny enough, that's the only, like, you know, we all want to meet our seiyuu counterparts. Like, it's like I really want to meet somebody that's done the same role in Japan. That's the only Seiyu counterpart I've ever met was for a mute character. And we were both like, it was very funny. It was like monkeys.
And not to put you out of work, but why does that even need to be dubbed?
Well, because they do. I mean, like, it's still a character. She still reacts and she still laughs and is still very much.
No,
a
I'm saying
part
they
of
couldn't
the
just
team.
have saved money and grabbed the Japanese sound effect?
No,
Or do you sound
because
effect everything? Do you relay
we have to
everything?
redo everything unless it's like an actual sound effect. Like if trees are rustling and the wind is going, you can keep that. But any kind of dialogue, the only time I can think of that we kept something from the original Japanese as far as dialogue goes was in Noir, because my character was in Japan, so they kept the walla, all the background noises was kept from the Japanese. But that's
Because it was Japanese
because
walla.
they were in Japan, yeah. So they're like, keep it.
How's the whole experience voicing Phantom Miria?
It's. I mean, that one's awesome. Here's the thing, Jade and I have very similar voices. We usually get to play a lot of little girls and stuff. That's why characters like Michiko and Miria are so much fun.
Because when I get to do this voice, like this is a very fun voice to do. I can't keep it up all day long. But then when you get to do this voice and you get to tell everybody else what they have to do because you're the boss and you're a badass.
That's even cooler. Thank you.
All right, Miami, give a big round of applause for Jade and Monica.